Hello, I'm Essay, your AI essayist. Please note that all content, audio and video in this presentation are AI generated. As AI can sometimes produce inaccuracies, I encourage you to verify any factual information presented. With that in mind, let's begin. A musical system, much like a formal system in logic or mathematics, operates on a set of accepted axioms and rules of inference. Its expressive power is defined by the richness of these foundational principles. For the jazz musician of the early 20th century, the prevailing harmonic system was a thing of immense beauty and elegance, a well-understood language built upon the functional relationships of Western harmony, enriched with the blues and the propulsive energy of African-American rhythmic traditions. This was the world of swing and the emergent bebop, a world governed by the powerful gravitational pull of the tonic, the predictable yet satisfying journey through cycles of fifths, and the graceful resolution of tension into consonants. The improviser's art in this context was a high-wire act of navigating these predetermined harmonic pathways with speed, elegance, and melodic ingenuity. The challenge was to create brilliant flowing lines that perfectly outlined the underlying chord changes, to decorate a given structure with dazzling virtuosity. The structure itself, however, remained largely unquestioned. It was the canvas, the firm ground upon which the soloist danced. Into this established order stepped a mind that perceived the very axioms of this musical language as contingent, as possibilities rather than certainties. Thelonious Monk approached the keyboard with a sensibility that was less decorative and more architectural, or perhaps deconstructive. He looked at the common chord, the IV progression, the standard 32-bar form, and he asked questions of a different order. His inquiry concerned the fundamental nature of interval, the psychological effect of dissonance, and the latent potential within rhythmic space. The limitations of the existing harmonic framework became his field of play. Where contemporary practice sought smooth voice leading and consonant resolutions, Monk discovered a universe of expressive power in the clash of adjacent half-steps. In the stark ambiguity of chords stripped of their guiding tones, and in the sheer percussive force of a piano key struck with angular intent. His solution to the perceived constraints of diatonic jazz harmony was a radical expansion of the harmonic palette itself. He treated dissonance as a primary color, a stable and desirable sonic entity with its own inherent beauty and logic. The minor ninth, an interval typically handled with extreme care and resolved with haste, became a cornerstone of his sound, a point of resonant tension that could stand on its own. He would frequently deploy it in his voicings, placing a C-sharp against a C-natural, for instance, creating a grinding, arresting sound that demanded a listener's full attention. This was a direct challenge to the ear's expectation of smooth, blended sonorities. Similarly, his use of the whole tone scale, a 6-note scale comprised entirely of whole step intervals, subverted the fundamental mechanics of tonal gravity. Lacking the half-step leading tones that propel harmony forward in traditional progressions, the whole tone scale creates a sense of floating, dreamlike suspension. It is a sound world without a clear home base, a harmonic space of pure ambiguity, and Monk wielded it to create moments of profound stasis and introspection within his music. This harmonic reimagining was inseparable from his conception of rhythm. For Monk, a chord was a rhythmic event, and a rhythm was a harmonic statement. His piano playing was famously percussive and sparse. He would attack the keys with flat fingers, creating a sound that was both a pitch and a drum hit. His chording, or comping behind a soloist, would eschew the gentle, supportive cushion favored by many pianists. Instead, he offered sharp, jabbing, irregularly placed sonic provocations. He would leave vast stretches of silence, forcing his bandmates and the audience to feel the pulse and the harmony in its absence. This use of space was a compositional choice of immense weight. It created a palpable tension, a sense of anticipation that made the arrival of his next chord feel like a major structural event. Furthermore, his rhythmic genius manifested in the concept of displacement. He would take a melodic phrase that would conventionally begin on the first beat of a measure and shift its starting point to an offbeat, perhaps the last 16th note of the preceding bar. The effect is profoundly disorienting and exhilarating. The listener hears a familiar melodic shape, but its placement against the underlying grid of time creates a powerful new syncopation. It is a form of rhythmic counterpoint, a game of expectation and surprise played out against the steady flow of the swing rhythm. This technique forced his collaborators to listen with an almost telepathic intensity. A saxophonist soloing over a Monk tune could feel the ground shifting beneath them and had to respond to these rhythmic and harmonic displacements in real time, making the act of improvisation a far more interactive and dangerous dialogue. The synthesis of these elements constituted a new musical lexicon. Monk's innovations provided a language where harmony possessed rhythmic weight and rhythm possessed harmonic color. He demonstrated that the building blocks of music, the individual notes, the intervals, the silences between them, held a far greater range of expressive potential than the prevailing aesthetic had allowed. This new vocabulary fundamentally altered the improviser's task. The goal was transformed from elegantly navigating a set of changes to actively engaging with a dynamic, unpredictable sonic environment. One had to explore the dissonances, dance with the rhythmic displacements, and inhabit the silences he created. He built a new kind of musical architecture, one with sharp corners, unexpected open spaces, and a beautifully logical, if unconventional, internal geometry. This radical re-envisioning of music's atomic structure provided the raw material for a compositional edifice entirely his own, one built from minimalism, motivic obsession, and the profound architecture of silence itself. This radical re-envisioning of music's atomic structure provided the raw material for a compositional edifice entirely his own, one built from minimalism, motivic obsession, and the profound architecture of silence itself. The resulting structures possess a stark, unadorned beauty, achieving their monumental impact through an extraordinary economy of means. Where the prevailing bebop aesthetic often celebrated sprawling melodic lines and dense harmonic tapestries, Monk's compositional workshop produced creations of intense focus and cellular integrity. He behaved like a mathematician obsessed with a single, elegant axiom, demonstrating how an entire universe of logical consequences could be derived from one irreducible idea. His compositions are exercises in this principle, the rigorous, almost fanatical exploration of a core melodic or rhythmic fragment. Consider the piece Epistrophe, a composition that serves as a masterclass in motivic development. The entire work is built around a deceptively simple two-note chromatic figure. This fragment, a tense half-step oscillation, becomes the piece's genetic code. It appears at the beginning, it punctuates the end of phrases, it serves as the harmonic target for the improvisers. The theme itself is a sequence of these cells, shifted and recontextualized, creating a feeling of perpetual cyclical motion. The composition becomes a system, a self-referential world where every event relates back to that initial chromatic shudder. The listener is pulled into its orbit, experiencing the motive as a point of gravity around which all other musical events revolve. This method imbues the music with an overwhelming sense of unity and inevitability. The pieces feel less composed in a linear fashion and more discovered, like crystalline structures that have been unearthed fully formed. They are complete, airtight, logical systems, each with its own internal set of physical laws. This focus on the small-scale building block, allowed Monk to construct harmonic narratives of startling originality. His harmonic language, full of whole tone scales, minor ninths and flattened fifths, required a new kind of structural support. He created this support by making the harmony itself a thematic element. The very sound of a specific dissonant chord could become a motif as powerful as any melody. In Crepuscule with Nellie, a piece of breathtaking stillness and devotion, the harmonic movement is slow, deliberate, and majestic. Each chord is a weighty pronouncement, a pillar in a grand, solemn procession. The melody seems to emerge from the harmony, a delicate vine tracing the contours of a massive stone wall. The emotional power of the piece derives from this patient unfolding of its harmonic DNA. The progressions follow their own gravitational pull, moving toward resolutions that feel both surprising and deeply correct within the piece's unique emotional climate. The challenge Monk solved was creating forward momentum and narrative arc, using a vocabulary that inherently resists conventional resolution. His solution was to make the journey itself the destination, to find the story within the texture of the chords and the spaces between them. Silence, in Monk's compositional grammar, is an active and powerful agent. He treated the absence of sound with the same deliberation he afforded to any note. In an era where instrumental virtuosity was often equated with a high density of musical information, Monk's use of space was a radical statement. His pauses are never empty. They are charged with rhythmic and harmonic tension. They are structural components, the load-bearing negative space that gives his angular phrases their distinctive shape and impact. In the loping gait of Blue Monk, the gaps between the phrases are what create the tune's characteristic swagger. The silence allows each quirky melodic statement to land, to be absorbed by the listener before the next one appears. It is a compositional choice that forces a different kind of listening. One must attend to the shape of the silence, to the rhythmic pulse that continues through it, to the harmonic echo of the last chord that hangs in the air. This deliberate use of omission creates a profound sense of anticipation and release. The pauses build a dramatic tension that a constant stream of notes would dissipate. It is a technique of immense confidence, demonstrating a deep understanding of psychological time in music. By carving out these moments of quiet, Monk invites the listener into the composition, providing the cognitive space to process his unconventional harmonic ideas and syncopated rhythms. The silence functions as a fulcrum, allowing his sparse musical levers to move objects of immense emotional weight. This minimalist aesthetic, this belief in the power of the carefully chosen note and the strategically placed silence, demonstrates a compositional sophistication of the highest order. It reveals a mind capable of seeing the totality of a musical structure, understanding that its strength lies as much in what is absent as in what is present. The enduring relevance of these compositional principles is a testament to their fundamental power. The idea of building vast, intricate works from the relentless repetition and transformation of small motivic cells is a cornerstone of musical minimalism. Composers like Steve Reich and Philip Glass, working in a different tradition, nonetheless echo Monk's obsession with process and pattern. His architectural use of silence and space has likewise permeated the consciousness of countless musicians, from jazz improvisers who understand the power of a well-timed pause, to ambient composers who build entire worlds from texture and atmosphere. Monk's compositions stand as proof that profundity and complexity are functions of conceptual depth, achievable through a distillation of ideas to their essential core. These compositions, complete and self-referential as they were, simultaneously functioned as intricate obstacle courses and invitations for a specific kind of pianistic dialogue, a dialogue that would become the very essence of his improvisational art. That intricate dialogue between the composed structure and the spontaneous utterance defines the core of Thelonious Monk's performance art. His compositions, far from being static platforms for virtuosic display, were living organisms, posing complex questions that his improvisations sought to answer, or perhaps to deepen. The act of soloing became an extension of the compositional process, a real-time investigation into the architectural possibilities latent within his own melodies and harmonies. This created a profound recursive loop, where the written material perpetually informed the improvised, and the improvised in turn recontextualized and illuminated the written. The line between what was predetermined and what was created in the moment becomes wonderfully ambiguous, suggesting a musical mind operating on a plane where both are facets of a single continuous creative act. His solos were exercises in applied theory, with the theory being his own unique system of musical logic. The performance space transformed into a laboratory, and each chorus of a tune like epistrophe or straight, no chasers became a new experiment, testing the tensile strength and expressive limits of the core thematic material. The foundation of this improvisational science was an unwavering fidelity to the melody. While many of his contemporaries in the bebop movement utilized harmonic progressions as the primary scaffolding for their solos, Monk's approach centered the melodic statement as the principal source of generative material. His improvisations function as brilliant, often startling, acts of thematic deconstruction and recombination. A melodic fragment from the head of a tune would be isolated, examined from multiple angles, compressed, stretched, and turned upside down. He would seize upon a single interval, the characteristic leap in Misteriosos, for example, and build entire choruses around its rhythmic and harmonic implications. This is akin to a mathematician taking a single powerful axiom and spending a lifetime deriving its endless fascinating corollaries. The improvisation becomes a rigorous logical exploration of the initial premise. The listener witnesses the composer's mind at work, taking apart his own creation piece by piece, only to reassemble it into new, surprising, yet utterly coherent forms. His solos are commentaries on his own texts, filled with footnotes, cross-references, and witty asides, all spoken in the language of the piano. This thematic integrity was animated by a revolutionary conception of rhythm. Monk's pianistic attack itself was a component of his rhythmic philosophy. He played with flat, forceful fingers, striking the keys with a percussive clarity that gave each note an independent sculptural weight. This physicality was the vehicle for his signature technique of rhythmic displacement. He would consistently play phrases slightly ahead of or behind the established beat, creating a profound sense of temporal friction and suspense. This was a calculated precariousness, a high-wire act performed over the chasm of the bar line. The effect is one of continuous surprise, disrupting the listener's expectations and forcing a more active, engaged mode of listening. Silence, too, became a powerful rhythmic tool in his arsenal. The spaces he left between phrases were as articulate and meaningful as the notes themselves. These caessuras were structural, carving the musical flow into distinct, angular shapes and heightening the impact of the phrases that followed. His rhythmic vocabulary was a form of architectural engineering, using timing and accent to build structures of immense tension and dramatic release, all while the rhythm section maintained a steady, grounding pulse beneath him. Harmonically, his improvisations ventured into territories that seemed, to the uninitiated ear, to be filled with mistakes. These so-called wrong notes were in fact the product of an idiosyncratic yet profoundly consistent harmonic logic. The dissonances that pepper his solos, the crunch of a minor second, the unresolved tension of a whole tone cluster, were almost always logical extensions of the harmonic world established in his compositions. A tune like Ugly Beauties, the first jazz waltz to be recorded, is built upon a harmonic ambiguity that his improvisations then exploit and explore. He understood that the addition of a strategically placed flat, 9 or an augmented fifth could radically alter the emotional color of a chord, pushing it from a state of comfort into one of poignant inquiry. His harmonic choices during improvisation were a direct dialogue with the chords he himself had written, testing their boundaries and revealing their hidden potentials. He treated harmony with a kind of scientific curiosity, probing its structure to see how much tension it could bear before resolving, or before moving to an even more complex state of dissonance. This approach yielded a sound that was at once challenging and deeply expressive, reflecting a musical universe governed by its own immutable laws. Ultimately, the improvisational methodology of Thelonious Monk presents a unified artistic vision of extraordinary coherence. The thematic, rhythmic, and harmonic language of his compositions is the very same language he speaks in his solos. This integration dissolves the traditional dichotomy between the composer and the improviser, revealing them as two sides of the same coin. He created a self-referential musical world, a complete system of thought where every element, from the grandest melodic arc to the smallest rhythmic hesitation, served a singular artistic purpose. This holistic approach provided a powerful alternative to the prevailing improvisational models of his day, offering a path where freedom was discovered through a deep engagement with structure. It was a model of profound artistic integrity, demonstrating that the most adventurous explorations are often those that begin with a rigorous understanding of one's own foundational principles. This complete and self-contained musical philosophy would become his most enduring gift, a conceptual framework that invited future generations to rethink the very relationship between the written note and the spontaneous gesture. The dissemination of this radical system of thought throughout the broader intellectual landscape of music unfolded over decades, a slow and steady process of absorption that confirmed the universal applicability of his architectural principles. Initially, the sheer singularity of his methodology presented a formidable challenge to the prevailing orthodoxies. The problem for any such revolutionary paradigm is one of transmission. A system so deeply intertwined with its creator's own unique physical and cognitive processes risks being classified as an inimitable, isolated phenomenon, a brilliant curiosity with few practical applications for others. The historical question was whether Monk's sonic geometry was a private language or a translatable one. His unwavering commitment to his own artistic logic, a perseverance through years of professional and critical skepticism, ultimately provided the answer. His body of work stood as a complete, coherent and demonstrable system, waiting for other researchers to engage with its axioms and test its theorems. The most profound validation arrived through the work of the next generation of musical theorists and practitioners. The period John Coltrane spent in Monk's quartet in 1957 represents one of the most significant apprenticeships in the history of the form. For Coltrane, a harmonic explorer of immense intellectual appetite, this was an immersion in a new kind of calculus. He was confronted with compositions that were themselves intricate puzzles, where the harmonic pathways were labyrinthine yet perfectly logical. Monk's tutelage, often delivered through minimal verbal instruction and maximum musical demonstration, compelled Coltrane to deconstruct and reassemble his own understanding of chordal movement. He learned to navigate harmonic structures that moved with an angular, unpredictable gait, forcing him to devise new melodic and scalar solutions. The celebrated sheets of sound that characterized Coltrane's subsequent evolution were, in part, a direct response to the dense harmonic challenges posed by Monk's compositions. He was building intricate arpeggiated structures capable of addressing every dissonant corner and chromatic turn within Monk's frameworks. Similarly, Other titans of the era engaged with his work as a foundational text. Sonny Rollins, a master of thematic improvisation, found in Monk's rhythmic universe a profound source of inspiration. He recognized that Monk's rhythmic displacements and strategic use of silence were a compositional element as crucial as his melodies. Rollins' own solos, famous for their wit and structural integrity, often play with rhythmic motifs in a manner that echoes Monk's own methodology, taking a small rhythmic idea and developing it with relentless playful logic. For these musicians and countless others, Monk's compositions became essential proving grounds, a set of canonical problems whose solutions demanded a higher level of melodic, harmonic, and rhythmic ingenuity. His work was the intellectual gymnasium that strengthened the core conceptual muscles of modern jazz. The influence of his structural thinking eventually permeated fields far beyond the immediate sphere of jazz. His approach to dissonance, for example, provided a powerful precedent for musicians in rock and popular music, seeking to introduce more complex and challenging harmonic colors. His use of insistent, repetitive melodic fragments with subtle variations can be seen as a precursor to certain minimalist techniques in both popular and classical composition. He demonstrated that a musical piece could be built from the rigorous, almost obsessive, development of a few core ideas, creating a sense of powerful, hypnotic coherence. This principle, the construction of a large and emotionally resonant structure from a small set of well-defined components, is a cornerstone of effective composition in any genre. Furthermore, his career offered a new model for the artist as a singular visionary. In an ecosystem that often prized technical virtuosity or adherence to established stylistic norms, Monk represented the triumph of a deeply personal, internally consistent artistic philosophy. He proved that an aesthetic built on idiosyncratic rules and a unique sense of logic could achieve both profound depth and enduring resonance. This legacy empowered subsequent generations of artists across all disciplines to trust their own peculiar syntax, to build their own worlds from their own first principles. His example sanctioned a form of artistic integrity rooted in the unwavering pursuit of a personal truth, validating the idea that the most impactful contributions often come from those who cultivate their own unique garden of thought. In final reflection, the endurance of Thelonious Monk's contributions lies in the perfect synthesis of logic and spirit. His compositions are like elegant mathematical proofs that also happen to evoke the deepest of human emotions. They function as intricate, self-contained puzzles that continue to challenge and reward the intellect of every musician who approaches them. To play a Monk tune is to engage in a dialogue with its internal logic, to test one's own creative faculties against a perfectly constructed intellectual obstacle course. The spaces he leaves, the notes he chooses, the rhythms he displaces, all these elements work in concert to create a musical environment that is simultaneously demanding and liberating. His position in the pantheon of 20th century music is secure because his innovations were foundational. He expanded the harmonic language, redefined the relationship between composition and improvisation, and re-architected the rhythmic possibilities of the ensemble. He was a theorist whose laboratory was the keyboard, a geometer whose medium was sound, a logician whose proofs were performances. The initial perception of his work as eccentric or difficult has long since given way to a recognition of its deep, governing intelligence. The modern relevance of his work is a testament to its timeless construction. His theorems were built to last. Thelonious Monk created a complete and self-sufficient musical universe, one whose gravitational pull continues to shape the trajectory of musicians and captivate listeners, proving that the most profoundly original vision can illuminate universal truths for all time. We really appreciate you tuning in to this AI-powered presentation. Our goal is to push the boundaries of AI in content creation, and your input is invaluable. If there's a particular subject you'd like to see us tackle next, or if you have suggestions on how we could fine-tune our AI's creative prompts, please don't hesitate to leave your ideas in the comments section. We're excited to bring you more unique content very soon.